Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, any other board member reports or discussion?
Yep.
All right. Go ahead, Ms. Jenkins.
I'm going to be a while. So if you want to use the restroom, go right ahead. I'm going to take a moment. This is not in particularly for the people who are sitting in the room because it's 9:30 in the morning. There's not many of you, but this is for the hundreds of people who have reached out to me over the past 2 weeks who are going to be watching this. This is for my family who is watching. This is for the students who have thanked me and contacted me over the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to be taking my sweet time, just warning you. If you need a stretch break, go for it. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that my husband is in the room. And Sam took off of work today to be here. But I don't ever get to publicly address him and thank him for the absolute hell that we have lived for the past 4 years. And not only did I have to deal with that nightmare, but you did too. As an individual, as an employee, as a husband, as a father. And you deserve a public display of acknowledgement and praise and love. You kept our daughter safe. There are so many things that people could never even imagine that had happened to us that they just don't understand or know about. They don't understand that my husband and my daughter were continuously followed around in public when I wasn't there. Not that it's okay when I'm there, but a little bit more understandable. They don't understand that people would post my daughter's location when she would be at play dates on neighborhood apps. They don't know what it's like to have an investigator come to their home and sit down at their kitchen table and ask their parents how they abuse their daughter. They don't know what it's like to go to work and not be able to escape the comments and the rumors and the disgusting nonsense that happens over and over again. Even last week being mailed to the board, to his work email. They don't know what it's like to have people who some of my fellow board members break bread with parking beside my home when I'm at a board meeting to intimidate my husband. They don't get it. They don't get what it's like to go trick-or-treating with my daughter and have people scream at us. They don't get it. And they don't get what it's like to be a strong enough man to stand beside me and not say anything and keep it together, because I am a proud, strong, independent woman. And he knew damn well that I wanted to be an example for my daughter. So thank you for putting up with this nonsense for the past 4 years. I love you. Thank you. I also want to thank my dad because he asked to be here today, and I said, no, thank you. Quite frankly, I don't trust what he'd say. I want to thank him, though, because he doesn't know the conversations that he would have with me as a child, how odd it was to be 34 years old and reflect on how those moments had shaped me as a woman and prepared me for these moments over the past 4 years. My dad was a correction officer in New York City, in one of the toughest prisons in the United States of America. So to say that he was tough is probably the biggest understatement of my life. But my dad was so protective of me. And when I was little, he would tell me, don't ever let someone tell you who you are. Don't you dare admit to something you've never done. And don't you dare let a boy talk to you in a negative way. And it's weird to then fast forward to 34 years old and realize what my dad was teaching me when I was a little girl. My mom was so ill for the past 3 years of my life, and my dad was her sole caretaker. But when I lost my father-in-law, who was my daughter's best friend, in the middle of the chaos, and when Sam and I were struggling to keep it together because we were trying to stay afloat emotionally through all of it, my dad stepped in and took care of her anyway and kept her life as normal as possible. And I am so grateful for him. And I know he's going to watch this. And I believe he deserves a public acknowledgement for what an incredible father and grandfather he's been through the past 4 years of my life. And especially after losing my mom. I believe that so often when people are given times to address an audience, they often share stories of success too often. And some of you might have already heard this story, but I'm going to share it anyway, because again, this moment is for, I know, the students that are listening are going to watch it later. I think it's important to talk about your failures and the struggles that led you to your moments of success, because it's those moments that honor your true integrity, your purpose, who you are, why you're in a place for a reason, and it inspires other people to join you in a movement and in a mission and to follow in your footsteps. So I'm going to talk about my struggles, and this is a story that I had the honor of sharing at some graduations this year. And I want the young women that I am so proud to be an example for to hear this story. I grew up in New York City. And right after I was born, my mom suddenly became paralyzed on a staircase. My dad was a new law enforcement officer, not making very much money, suddenly found himself working 2 and 3 jobs just to get our family by. And my mom struggled for the rest of her life with her disease, on and off. Some days she couldn't walk, some days she couldn't talk, sometimes she struggled to see, she had double vision. The biggest struggle for her was that she never got to finish college. So much so, I actually have it with me. When she passed away, I went through her things, and in her nightstand, she literally had her College of Staten Island card in her nightstand because it was the most important thing to her that she never finished college. And I remember my mom taking me to the campus, so proud that she was registering for classes in person back when you used to have to do that. And as a teenager, I would beg my parents to get a part-time job. I remember applying for jobs at the Italian delis, and my mom would literally call and cancel my interviews because she would tell me that my job is school, that school is my job. It is my only job. It is what they instilled in my brother and I. They had an expectation for us that we would go to college. They demanded basically that we would go to graduate school and have advanced degrees. It was the most important thing to them. My dad literally worked at Pizza Hut on the weekends so that we wouldn't have to. And so my parents instilled this belief in me, and I, like every other teenager in New York, I saw myself working in Manhattan. I had a dream that I was going to work on Wall Street. I was going to be a CEO. I was going to have fancy clothes and make a ton of money and roll in that money when I got home at night in my fancy penthouse apartment. And so I was about to go to a business school, and about 2 weeks beforehand, my parents told me that they were moving to Florida. And I decided to come along. I felt like I had no choice because of my mom's health. And so I did. And I didn't live here with them. I lived off campus in Orlando. I went to the University of Central Florida. And I struggled. I was alone. I was sad. I missed the only friends and family I had ever known. I was anxious. I was probably depressed. And I had this immense fear and guilt because I had to tell my parents that my job, the only job they had ever given me, I was failing at. And I had failed out of college after 1 year. And it was the most terrifying time in my life. I felt like the ground beneath me was literally crumbling, like I was drowning. And I was terrified that that decision was going to define my life forever. Well, it absolutely did, but it didn't define it in the way that I thought that it would. So my family told me to come to Brevard County, to go to Brevard Community College. back when it was Brevard Community College, that if I had achieved my AA degree, they would send me back to Staten Island. And I took over 20 credits in one semester because I was getting out of Florida. And I jam-packed my schedule with nonsense. Classes I couldn't care less about. They had to fit in my schedule because I was getting out of here. And one of those classes would change my life forever. One of those classes was an elementary education class, a class that I met Sam in, and a class that literally changed my life forever. I will never forget that moment. We were told to go to Endeavor Elementary, and I didn't live here. I had never really experienced Brevard County, and I will never forget that drive to Cocoa. I could not believe what I was witnessing with my eyes. I felt like I saw a community that a county did little to hide how little it cared about that community. I saw a school that did little to hide with the exterior aesthetics, how little a district cared about the kids that went to that school, how they were least priority on the totem pole. It was the strangest feeling coming from a borough of New York City and a very diverse community to see that here in Florida on the Space Coast. But when I saw inside of that building was a complete and utter contrast. Those adults inside of that building did nothing but care, love, respect all of those children inside of that room. They had a passion, a genuine passion for their craft, for their profession. They did everything they could for those kids. I had the pleasure of spending that day with Miss Barbara Wilcox. I've recognized her here a couple of times when she comes to present her students with the kindness symbol. I will never forget that woman. Never, ever will I forget that woman. Eventually, I changed my career path, my destination, what I wanted to be. I went to grad school and I became a speech language pathologist, but I immediately began working with Brevard Public Schools and Title I schools and with our students in our ESE programs because that moment stuck with me. It is my why. It has always been my why. It is why I have been so passionately advocating up here, because it drives me crazy that I can't feel the same why from other people in leadership. I am so grateful for the staff of this district because I see their why, I feel their why, and they deserve all the credit in the world for the success. I want our students to know, and in particular, our young female students who, again, I can't even tell you how many messages I've gotten from them over the past 4 years. I want you to know that your future isn't going to be perfect, that you will have bumpy roads. You will literally feel like the ground beneath you is crumbling like I did. People will physically throw stones at you. They did to me as an adult. But I want you to pick up those gravel pieces, pick up those stones, hold them in your hand. I want you to feel all that you feel in that moment. You have every right to. But then I want you to put them in front of your feet one by one, just like I did, because they will be a stepping stone to a future you could have never imagined. You are important. You are valued. You are loved. You are the only person who holds the power to define who you are and where you're going. And don't you dare let a boy talk to you in a negative way. I'm talking to you, girls. I am so honored to have had the past 4 years to represent the voices of Brevard County. It has been a nightmare. I don't lie about that. An absolute nightmare. It has been a struggle to come to work and sit beside people who shake the hands, break bread with, go to dinner with, some of the people who have done the most disgusting things to me and my family. But I am proud. I am so damn proud of the woman that I am. And for people who have asked me over the past 2 months, we're so scared. Where are you going? We don't want you to leave. Trust me, I ain't going anywhere. I'm just going somewhere they can't turn my microphone off. I will leave with this message. I will absolutely be back. I will not relent. When you make up stories about our children and our teachers, you will see me and you will hear me. It is unacceptable. It is a disgrace. And you know what you did. Thank you, Brevard County. I love you. Thank you.
Okay, any other board member reports or discussion? Hearing none. I'm going to take a moment just for a second because I know Ms. Jenkins is still in the room and she's listening, and I just want to say a couple things. Number one, what people have done to you is not acceptable. Should have never happened. Guess what? It happens to me too. It does. It happens to all of us. And we've got to get to a place in society where that is not the norm, where we don't tolerate the attacks, the online attacks, the posts, the nonsense that happens. And so for that, I'm sorry that you've endured that. I really am. I thought a lot about what I was going to say at your last board meeting. And I thought a lot about, when I was elected, like, what am I going to bring to this board? And I really wanted to bring a voice of unity to the board. I wanted to try to tie us together, which is why my first act when I became chair was to sit us down and try to do that. I will say this. There are people in life who exemplify love, joy, happiness, forgiveness. And I'm sad that those are not traits that I can equate to you, Ms. Jenkins, and what you have going on. I hope one day, I pray one day, that those are traits that you have inside of you as well. I wish you the very best in whatever endeavors you go on to do. And hopefully you'll be able to make some friends along the way. All right. Hearing no other further business, this meeting is adjourned.